The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering with the sporadic rhythm of dying insects. I pulled my mop across the grimy linoleum floor, watching the dirty water trail behind me in sluggish, murky pools. The chemical stench of industrial cleaner couldn't mask the underlying smell of the plant. Copper, ammonia, and something else. Something organic and faintly sweet that reminded me of blood. My fingers tightened around the wooden handle, calluses catching on splinters I'd never bothered to sand down. 372 nights. That's how long I'd been pushing this same mop across these same floors. Invisible. Forgettable. Exactly as I needed to be. The midnight shift suited me. The shadows felt like old friends, and the emptiness of the corridors matched the hollow space behind my ribs where a heartbeat should have been. My footsteps echoed against the concrete walls, a lonely percussion in this industrial cathedral. The only other sound was the distant hum of machinery that never slept, pumping chemicals through the arteries of the building. I paused near the executive wing, listening. A light was on in the corner office, Isabelle Linton's office. The CEO rarely worked this late. Through the frosted glass, I could make out her silhouette, straight-backed and elegant even at this hour. My throat tightened. I'd been careful to avoid her, to remain just another faceless maintenance worker beneath her notice. The air felt different tonight, heavier. The copper-sweet scent that always lingered at the edges of my awareness seemed stronger, almost like a warning. I'd learned to trust these instincts over the centuries. Something was coming. I wheeled my bucket toward the service elevator, the squeaking wheels jarringly loud in the silence. The weight of the silver medallion pressed against my chest beneath my gray uniform, a constant reminder of what I'd lost, what I'd abandoned, the throne, the responsibility, the bloodshed. The elevator doors opened with a tired sigh. As I stepped inside, the fluorescent light caught my reflection in the metal doors. Pale skin, dark eyes, features that hadn't aged in over 400 years. Caspian Vance. Once a king. Now a janitor with a mop and a secret. The doors closed, and I descended into the basement level, where the shadows were deeper and the memories could be kept at bay. For now. The security monitors cast a bluish glow across the basement office where I'd taken my break. I wasn't supposed to have access, but locks had long ago ceased to be obstacles for me. I sipped lukewarm coffee that I didn't need, but had learned to appreciate as part of my human charade. My eyes scanned the 12 screens showing different areas of the plant. Movement on monitor 3 caught my attention. A black SUV pulling into the executive parking lot. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., far too late for normal business. I leaned forward, setting down the chipped mug emblazoned with the Linton Chemical logo. The vehicle's headlights cut through the fog that had settled around the building like a shroud. 4 men exited, their movements precise and coordinated. Not executives, not maintenance, something else entirely. My skin prickled with ancient warning. The door to the security office creaked open. I didn't turn. "Vance, you're not supposed to be in here," said Elias Sterling, the night manager and Isabelle's father. His voice carried the weary authority of a man who'd spent decades giving orders. "How'd you get in this time?" "Door was open," I lied, not taking my eyes off the monitor. The men were approaching the executive entrance, and one carried something that made my dead heart clench. A child, a little girl in pajamas, limp in his arms. "Mr. Sterling, who are those men?" Elias stepped closer, squinting at the screen. His heartbeat quickened, the sound loud in my sensitive ears. "That's my granddaughter." he whispered. That's Elara. The coffee mug shattered in my grip, ceramic shards embedding in my palm. I barely noticed. Call security, I said, already moving toward the door. Wait! Elias grabbed my arm, his fingers trembling. That's Marcus Kane. He's been threatening Isabelle for months over the merger. Said he'd make her pay. I never thought... Call security, I repeated, pulling away. And an ambulance. I moved through the corridors at just under inhuman speed, careful to maintain my cover, but urgency driving me forward. The scent of fear, sharp and acrid, grew stronger as I approached the executive level. I could hear voices now, raised in anger. The merger goes through tomorrow, unless you sign these papers right now. A man's voice, cold and controlled. Your daughter stays with us until the board meeting is concluded. You won't get away with this. Isabelle's voice, strained but defiant. The security cameras have been disabled. Your father's access code was surprisingly easy to obtain. I pressed my back against the wall outside her office, assessing. 4 heartbeats, the men. One smaller, faster rhythm, the child. And Isabelle's, racing with fear but steady with determination. The familiar weight of my decision settled in my stomach. Remain hidden, as I had for centuries, or intervene and risk everything. The little girl whimpered, and the sound cut through me like a blade. I pushed the cleaning cart ahead of me, head down, shoulders hunched, the universal posture of someone meant to be invisible. The squeaking wheels announced my approach as I turned into the executive hallway. Maintenance, I called out, my voice deliberately rough and disinterested. Need to clean the bathrooms. I felt rather than saw the sudden tension from the office doorway. One of the men stepped out, hand concealed beneath his jacket. Up close, his expensive suit couldn't hide the predator's stance, the flat eyes of someone accustomed to violence. Not now, he said. Come back later. I kept my eyes downcast, playing my part. Boss says it's gotta be done now. Health inspection tomorrow. I risked a glance past him into the office. Isabelle stood behind her desk, knuckles white against the polished mahogany. Her tailored suit was impeccable despite the late hour, but fear had carved lines around her mouth. Behind her, another man held Elara, one hand covering her mouth. The child's eyes were wide, tears streaming down her cheeks. The third man, Marcus Kane, I presumed, sat casually in Isabelle's chair, a contract spread before him. The fourth stood by the window, watching the parking lot. I said come back later, the man repeated, his hand now visibly gripping a pistol beneath his jacket. I nodded submissively, turning the cart around. No problem. Sorry to disturb. As I retreated, I caught Isabelle's eyes for just a moment. Recognition flickered there. Not of who I truly was, but of the janitor she'd passed 100 times without really seeing. Now she was seeing me, and silently pleading for help. The weight of centuries pressed down on me. I'd sworn never to reveal myself again, to live in the shadows after what happened in Budapest. The bloodshed, the betrayal, the exile. I'd made it halfway down the hall when I heard the child cry out. The sound muffled but desperate. My hands tightened on the cart handle until the metal bent beneath my fingers. 372 nights of careful anonymity, all about to end. I abandoned the cart and moved back toward the office, this time making no effort to disguise my footsteps. My senses stretched outward, 4 heartbeats, weapons, positions, the child's fear scent sharp as a blade, Isabelle's controlled breathing, trying to remain calm for her daughter. I thought I told you, the guard began as I reappeared in the doorway. I met his eyes directly this time, letting a fraction of my true nature surface. His words died in his throat. "Let the child go," I said quietly, my voice carrying the weight of command that had once bent armies to my will. The room froze. Marcus Kane stood slowly, assessing me with cold calculation. "Who the hell is this?" "Nobody," said the man by the window. "Just the janitor." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Get rid of him." The guard nearest me reached for his weapon, but I was already moving. Centuries of restraint held me to human speed. Barely. I caught his wrist, applying just enough pressure to make the bones grind together. He gasped, the gun clattering to the floor. I said, "Let the child go." Each word fell like stone into the sudden silence. Kane pulled his own weapon, pointing it not at me, but at Elara. "Back off, hero, unless you want to see what happens when I get annoyed." I released the guard, raising my hands slowly. "You don't want to do this. Take me instead. A child is worth nothing to you." "On the contrary," Kane said, his smile never reaching his eyes. "This child is worth exactly 51% of Linton Chemical's voting shares once her mother signs these papers." Isabelle's voice cut through the tension. "Please," she said, looking at me with confusion and desperate hope. "Please don't let them hurt her." The man holding Elara tightened his grip, making her whimper again. The sound ignited something ancient and protective inside me. Something I'd buried centuries ago when I walked away from my throne, my people, my responsibility. I took another step forward. Last chance. "Release her." Kane's finger tightened on the trigger. "Wrong move, janitor." The gunshot exploded in the confined space. I could have moved, should have moved, but the trajectory wasn't aimed at me. In the millisecond between trigger pull and impact, I saw the bullet's path leading straight to Elara's small body. Time slowed to a crawl. The choice crystallized before me. Remain hidden and watch an innocent die, or reveal myself and lose everything I'd built. No choice at all. I lunged forward at my true speed, a blur even to my own perception. The bullet burned as it tore through my palm instead of the child's chest. I felt the metal flatten against my inhuman flesh, the pain sharp but familiar. Gasps filled the room as I moved between Kane and the child, my back to them, examining the bullet embedded in my hand. Silver blood, not red, oozed from the wound, catching the light like mercury. "What the hell are you?" Kane whispered. I turned slowly, feeling the weight of my true nature settle around me like a cloak. The bullet in my palm began to dissolve, my flesh already knitting closed around it. "Something you shouldn't have awakened," I answered, my voice no longer that of a janitor, but of the king I once was. I felt the silver blood trickling between my fingers, the bullet now completely absorbed into my healing flesh. The sensation was both familiar and strange after so long hiding what I truly was. The metal dissolved into my bloodstream, becoming part of me as all metals did. Fuel for the inhuman strength I could no longer conceal. Kane's face contorted with disbelief as he stumbled backward, his gun still raised but his hands shaking. Behind me I heard Elara's rapid, frightened breathing and felt Isabelle's stunned silence like a physical force. "Security!" Kane shouted, his voice cracking. "We have a situation!" I flexed my fully healed hand, the absorbed bullet now part of my being. The familiar surge of power, dormant for so long, coursed through my veins. The fluorescent lights above flickered as my presence disturbed the electrical field. "Elara," I said without turning around, "close your eyes." The child whimpered but obeyed. I could sense it without looking. Kane fired again, and again. I caught each bullet, the impacts barely registering as more than firm taps against my palm. Silver blood dripped onto the polished floor, sizzling slightly as it made contact. "Mr. Vance," Isabelle's voice came from behind me, surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. "What are you doing?" "Protecting what's mine," I answered, the words escaping before I could temper them. The security guards burst through the door, weapons drawn, 5 of them, humans, insignificant. I sighed, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on me. How long had it been since I'd revealed myself? 200 years? 3. "Put your hands up," one of them commanded. I turned my head slightly, just enough to make eye contact with Isabelle. "Get Elara out of here, now." Something in my voice, perhaps the unmistakable authority that had commanded armies, made her comply without question. She scooped up her daughter and backed toward the side door. "Stop them!" Kane ordered. 2 guards moved to intercept Isabelle and Elara. I was between them in less than a heartbeat. My movement so swift, it left after-images in the air. One guard gasped as I gripped his wrist, applying just enough pressure to make him drop his weapon. "You will not touch them," I said, my voice resonating with power that made the windows vibrate. The other guard fired. I caught his bullet as well, but my patience was wearing thin. With a flick of my wrist, I sent the first guard flying across the room, his body crashing into the wall with enough force to crack the plaster, but not enough to kill him. "Go," I told Isabelle, who stood frozen at the door, Elara's face pressed against her shoulder. Her eyes wide with fear and something else, something like recognition, met mine. "The basement level," she said. "There's a secure room," I nodded once. She fled with Elara, the door closing behind them. Kane was backing away now, his gun empty, face drained of color. "What the hell are you?" I smiled, feeling my canines extend slightly. "I told you. Something you shouldn't have awakened." The remaining guards surrounded me, their weapons trained on my chest. I could smell their fear, sharp and acrid, cutting through the antiseptic scent of the office. "I have no quarrel with any of you," I said, straightening my janitor's uniform with a casual gesture. "But I will not be detained." "Sir, you need to come with us," the lead guard said, his voice admirably steady despite his racing pulse. I sighed. "No, I don't." What followed was barely a fight. I moved through them like mist, disarming each one with precise, measured force. I had no desire to kill. Killing brought attention, and attention was the last thing I needed. In seconds, they lay scattered across the floor, groaning but alive. Only Kane remained standing, his back against the wall, eyes wild with fear and hatred. "You're one of them," he hissed, "the ones from the old stories." I approached him slowly, savoring the moment. "And what stories would those be, Mr. Kane?" "The blood drinkers, the night walkers." His voice dropped to a whisper. "The royal line." I stopped, genuinely surprised. "You know more than you should." "My family has hunted your kind for generations," he said, a tremor in his voice betraying his bravado. "We know what you are, what you do to children." I felt cold fury rise within me. "You know nothing," I growled, my voice dropping an octave. "Your kind has twisted the truth for centuries. We do not harm children, we protect them." "Protect them?" Kane laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. "By turning them into monsters?" "By guiding those born with the mark," I corrected, my patience wearing thin. "Those destined to bridge our worlds." Kane's eyes widened. "The girl, she's marked." I didn't confirm or deny, but my silence was answer enough. "I won't let you have her," he said, reaching slowly into his jacket. I caught the glint of silver before he could fully extract the weapon. Not a gun this time, but a blade. Ancient symbols etched its surface, symbols that made my skin crawl even from a distance. "An assassin's blade," I said softly. "Now that is interesting." Cain lunged forward with surprising speed for a human, the blade aimed at my heart. I sidestepped easily, catching his wrist and applying pressure until his fingers opened involuntarily. The blade clattered to the floor. "Who sent you?" I demanded, lifting him by his throat until his feet dangled above the ground. "Who knows about the child?" He struggled, his face reddening as he gasped for air. "Everyone who matters knows she's the next vessel." I dropped him in disgust. Vessel, such a crude term for something so sacred. Cain collapsed to his knees, coughing and clutching his throat. "You can't hide her forever." "I don't intend to hide her at all," I replied, picking up the blade and examining it. The symbols were older than my reign, dating back to the First Dynasty. "I intend to claim what is mine and take back my throne." His eyes widened. "You're not just any blood drinker, you're—" "Yes," I cut him off, sliding the blade into my own jacket. "I am, and you will deliver a message to your masters. Tell them Caspian Vance, the exiled king, has found his heir. Tell them I am coming." I left him there, surrounded by the groaning security guards, and followed Isabelle's scent toward the basement. The familiar copper and honey fragrance of her blood called to me, mixed with the lighter, sweeter scent of Elara's. The child's blood carried the unmistakable note of royal lineage, a lineage she couldn't possibly know she possessed. The basement level was a labyrinth of storage rooms and maintenance areas. I navigated it easily, following not just their scent, but the sound of Elara's frightened whispers and Isabelle's soothing responses. "It's okay, baby. We're safe here." "But Mommy, Mr. Vance—" "Shh, I don't know what's happening, but we'll figure it out." I paused outside the secure room, listening. The door was reinforced steel, impressive for a human structure but little more than tissue paper to me. Still, I knocked. Courtesy had been ingrained in me for centuries. Silence greeted my knock, then Isabelle's cautious voice. "Who is it?" "You know who it is, Ms. Linton." More silence. I could hear her heartbeat accelerating, the rush of blood through her veins like a symphony to my senses. "What do you want?" she finally asked. "To explain. To protect you both." "From what?" "You're the one who just attacked my security team." I leaned my forehead against the cool metal of the door. "They attacked me, if you recall. And I'm not the one who brought an assassin into your building." Her sharp intake of breath told me she hadn't realized what Cain truly was. "Marcus Cain was sent to kill your daughter," I said quietly, knowing she could hear me through the door. "He won't be the last." The lock clicked, and the door opened a few inches. Isabelle's face appeared in the gap, her expression a complex mixture of fear, confusion, and determination. "Why would anyone want to kill Elara?" she demanded. I met her gaze steadily. "Because of what she is, what she will become." "And what is that?" "May I come in? This conversation shouldn't happen in a hallway." She hesitated, then opened the door wider. The secure room was essentially a panic room, windowless with its own ventilation system and supplies. Elara sat on a small cot in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest, watching me with wide, curious eyes. I entered slowly, keeping my movements deliberate and non-threatening. The door closed behind me with a heavy thud. Your blood, Isabelle said abruptly. It was silver. I nodded. One of many differences between my kind and yours. And what kind is that exactly? I smiled slightly. You already know. Your heart knows, even if your mind refuses to accept it. Vampire, Elara said suddenly, her voice small but clear. Isabelle gasped, turning to her daughter. Elara! I knelt down to the child's level, maintaining a respectful distance. That is what humans call us, yes, though we prefer other terms. The Night Court, Elara said, her eyes fixed on mine. The Blood Throne. Now it was my turn to be surprised. How do you know these terms, little one? I dreamed them, she said simply. I dream of a castle with black towers and red windows. I dream of people with silver blood who bow to a king with no crown. Isabelle moved protectively toward her daughter. What is she talking about? What have you done to her? I've done nothing, I said, rising to my full height. This is her birthright speaking. Her blood remembers what her mind cannot yet comprehend. Birthright? Isabelle's voice rose. What birthright? She's my daughter, born in Mercy Hospital 7 years ago. There's nothing special about her blood. I regarded her carefully. Are you certain of that? Have you never wondered why she dreams of things she couldn't possibly know? Why she's drawn to the night? Why her eyes sometimes reflect light like a cat's? Isabelle's face paled. How do you know about that? Because I've been watching. For years I've been watching and waiting. That's why you took the janitor position, she whispered. To get close to us. To protect you, I corrected. I knew they would come eventually. The hunters, the assassins, those who fear what your daughter represents. And what does she represent? Isabelle demanded. I took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth, literally. She is the prophesied heir to the Blood Throne, the one who will unite the human and vampire worlds after centuries of separation. Isabelle laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. This is insane. Vampires aren't real. Thrones and prophecies aren't real. Then how do you explain what you saw upstairs? I asked quietly. The bullets? The silver blood? My strength? She had no answer for that. Mommy, Elara said, tugging at her mother's sleeve. He's telling the truth. I've always known I was different. Isabelle knelt beside her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Baby, you're special, yes. But not because of vampires or thrones. The birthmark, I said. On her left shoulder blade, a crescent moon intersected by 3 stars. Isabelle's head snapped up, her eyes wide. How could you possibly know that? Because it is the mark of the royal bloodline. My bloodline. The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost see Isabelle's mind working, trying to reconcile what she knew of the world with what she had witnessed today. If what you're saying is true, she finally said, why reveal yourself now? Why not stay hidden? Because Cain forced my hand, and because the time is approaching when Elara must begin to understand her destiny. She's 7 years old, Isabelle protested. She doesn't need a destiny. She needs a normal childhood. I shook my head sadly. That was never possible for her. From the moment she was conceived, she was marked for greatness. Conceived? Isabelle's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. What do you know about her conception? I hesitated. This was delicate territory. I know that Elara's father was not entirely human. The color drained from Isabelle's face. Richard was an artist from Boston. I met him at a gallery opening. Did you ever see him in daylight? I asked gently. Her silence was answer enough. He was one of us, a scout sent to find potential bloodlines compatible with our own. He was not supposed to father a child, merely identify candidates for future generations. But when he met you, I shrugged. Some connections transcend duty. He left before she was born, Isabelle whispered. He just disappeared. He was recalled, punished most likely for his transgression. Elara had been listening intently. Is my daddy a king too? I shook my head. No, little one. He was merely a courtier. I am the king, or was, before my exile. Exile? Isabelle asked. A long story for another time. I glanced at my watch. Right now we need to move. Cain will have reported to his superiors by now. They'll send more hunters. We're not going anywhere with you, Isabelle said firmly. Then you will die here, I replied, my voice hardening. And Elara will be taken and used as a weapon against my kind. Is that what you want? Of course not, but I can't just... A distant explosion cut her off. The building shook, dust raining from the ceiling. They're here already, I said grimly. We must go. Now. Isabelle hesitated only a moment before gathering Elara into her arms. Where? I have a sanctuary, a place they cannot find. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. How do we get out? Isabelle asked. If they're in the building, we don't use the building exits. I moved to the far wall, pressing my palm against a seemingly solid section. Under my touch, ancient symbols briefly glowed, then faded. A seam appeared in the wall, widening into a dark passage. The old ways are still the best ways. Isabelle stared in disbelief. That's not possible. I had this room built myself. Your father had it built, I corrected. Elias Sterling knows more than he's told you. My father? She shook her head in confusion. What does he have to do with this? He's a guardian, a human sworn to protect the secret pathways between your world and mine. The building shook again. Alarms began to wail. Questions later, I said firmly. We need to move. Reluctantly, Isabelle followed me into the passage, Elara still in her arms. I sealed the entrance behind us, plunging us into darkness that was absolute for human eyes, but merely dim for mine. I can't see anything, Isabelle said, her voice tight with fear. I took her hand. Her skin was warm against my cooler touch, her pulse racing beneath my fingertips. I can. Follow me. We moved through the ancient tunnel, its walls carved with symbols older than human civilization. The air was cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of earth and something metallic. Old blood, perhaps, from rituals long forgotten. Where does this lead? Isabelle asked, her voice echoing slightly. To the river. There's a boat waiting. You planned this, she accused. You knew this would happen. I hoped it wouldn't, I admitted. But yes, I prepared for it. I've been preparing for decades. We walked in silence for several minutes, the sounds of destruction above us growing fainter. Elara had stopped trembling and now seemed curious, her eyes straining to see in the darkness. Mr. Vance, she said suddenly, if you're a king, where's your queen? The innocent question struck me like a physical blow. Memories of my lost queen, her laughter, her fierce intelligence, her final moments, flooded through me. I had a queen once, I said softly. Long ago. What happened to her? Elara persisted. She died, in the rebellion that led to my exile. I'm sorry, the child said with surprising sincerity. Thank you, little one. We reached a junction, where the tunnel widened into a small chamber. Ancient sconces lined the walls, flaring to life as we entered, not with flame but with a cold, blue-white light that cast eerie shadows. Isabelle gasped. How? Blood magic, I explained. The oldest kind. These passages recognize royal blood. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, its surface stained dark with centuries of offerings. I approached it, drawing the assassin's blade I had taken from Cain. Isabelle pulled Elara back. What are you doing? Opening the way. I sliced my palm, letting silver blood drip onto the altar. The stone absorbed it eagerly, glowing with the same blue-white light as the sconces. A rumbling filled the chamber as a section of wall slid away, revealing another passage. This way, I said, wiping my already healing palm on my jacket. The new tunnel sloped downward, the air growing damper as we descended. The distant sound of flowing water reached us. The river is just ahead, I told them. My sanctuary lies on the other side. And then what? Isabelle demanded. We hide forever? Elara never has a normal life? I stopped, turning to face her. In the ethereal light, her features were sharper, her eyes reflecting the glow like a predator's. For a moment, I could see what had drawn Richard to her. The fierce protectiveness, the intelligence, the underlying strength. Normal was never an option for Elara, I said gently, but I can offer her safety, education, and preparation for her role. And what role is that exactly? You keep talking about thrones and destiny, but you haven't explained what that means. I sighed. This was the difficult part. Elara is meant to be queen of the Night Court, to rule alongside a king of royal blood, uniting our fractured realm and bringing peace between humans and vampires. Isabelle's eyes narrowed. Alongside a king? You mean you? That was the prophecy, yes. She's a child. Isabelle's voice rose in horror. You can't possibly. Not now, I interrupted quickly. Not for many years. The bonding ceremony traditionally takes place when the heir reaches maturity, 18 in human years. Bonding ceremony, she repeated flatly. You mean marriage? It's more complex than human marriage, but yes, similar in concept. Isabelle shook her head vehemently. Absolutely not. I don't care about prophecies or thrones. My daughter will not be promised to anyone, let alone someone who's... How old are you anyway? Older than this country, I admitted. Exactly. This is insane, predatory. I won't allow it. I understood her reaction. From a human perspective, it did sound horrific. The prophecy speaks of choice, Isabelle. When Elara is of age, she will decide her own path. I would never force her. But you're grooming her for it, setting expectations. I'm protecting her birthright, I countered. Without me, the hunters will find her. They'll use her blood to create weapons against my kind. Or worse, my enemies within the court will find her and force the bonding before she's ready. Elara, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. I want to see the castle with the black towers. We both looked at her in surprise. In my dreams, it's beautiful, she continued. Scary sometimes, but beautiful. And there are other children there. Special ones, like me. I nodded. There are. Children of the court, learning their gifts. I want to see it, she repeated firmly. Isabelle knelt before her daughter. Baby, you don't understand what's happening. This man wants to take you away, to make you something you're not. But I am something, Mommy, Elara said with the simple clarity of childhood. I've always known I was different. The dreams, the way I can feel what other people are feeling, how I can make small things move sometimes when I'm really mad. Isabelle's face registered shock. What do you mean, make things move? Elara looked down, suddenly shy. Just little things, like my toys or pencils on my desk. I didn't tell you because I thought you'd be scared. I watched this exchange with growing concern. Telekinesis wasn't a vampire trait. It was something else entirely. Something older and potentially more dangerous. We need to continue, I said urgently. The hunters will find the passage eventually, as if summoned by my words. A distant shout echoed through the tunnel behind us. Flashlight beams bounced off the walls. Run, I ordered, taking Elara from Isabelle's arms. I can move faster carrying her. We fled down the tunnel, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. The passage opened onto a small underground dock where a sleek boat waited, bobbing gently in the dark water. Get in, I commanded, placing Elara in the vessel before helping Isabelle aboard. The shouts were closer now, accompanied by the pounding of boots on stone. I untied the boat and pushed it into the current, leaping aboard as it drifted away from the dock. Flashlight beams illuminated the cavern just as we rounded a bend in the underground river. Gunshots rang out, bullets splashing into the water around us. Stay down! I pushed Isabelle and Elara to the floor of the boat as I took the rudder, guiding us through the darkness. The tunnel widened, the ceiling rising until it disappeared from view. We emerged into a vast underground chamber, its walls glittering with deposits of some crystalline mineral that reflected our passage in thousands of tiny mirrors. What is this place? Isabelle whispered, her anger momentarily forgotten in the face of such beauty. The underway, I replied. One of the ancient paths between worlds. The boat moved swiftly now, carried by a current that seemed to respond to my presence, accelerating as we left our pursuers behind. Ahead, a faint glow marked our destination, a breach in the cavern wall that led to open water. We burst into moonlight, the river widening around us as we joined the main channel. The city skyline glittered in the distance, oblivious to the drama unfolding in its shadows. I guided the boat toward the opposite shore, where dense forest concealed another entrance to the underway, one that would take us directly to my sanctuary. As we approached the shoreline, Isabelle finally broke her silence. I won't let you take her alone. I glanced at her, noting the determination in her eyes. I never intended to separate you. Then what did you intend? She demanded. To take us both as prisoners? As guests, I corrected, under my protection. And when these hunters find us again? What then? I secured the boat to a hidden mooring before responding. They won't find us where we're going. Not unless they're invited. I helped them ashore, leading them up a narrow path that wound through ancient trees. The forest was silent except for our footsteps and the occasional rustle of night creatures. The entrance is just ahead, I said, pointing to what appeared to be a solid rock face covered in moss and vines. Isabelle looked skeptical. Another secret door? Something like that. I approached the rock, pressing my palm against a specific configuration of moss. Like before, ancient symbols briefly illuminated, and the solid stone seemed to ripple like water. The blood gate, I explained. It requires royal blood to open. Is it safe? Isabelle asked, eyeing the rippling stone with suspicion. For you and Elara, yes. You're both connected to the royal line. Elara by blood, you by... I hesitated. By what? I met her gaze steadily. by destiny. The prophecy speaks not just of an heir, but of a queen. Understanding dawned in her eyes. No, absolutely not. I'm not proposing anything, I said quickly, merely explaining why the gate will admit you. I'm not part of your world, she insisted. I'm a CEO, a mother, a normal human woman. If you were normal, Richard would never have been drawn to you. If you were normal, you wouldn't have given birth to a child with royal blood. I gestured to the gate. But we can discuss this later. Right now, we need to get to safety. Reluctantly, Isabelle took Elara's hand and followed me toward the rippling stone. As we approached, the surface parted like a curtain, revealing a swirling vortex of silver and blue light. It's pretty, Elara whispered, reaching out a hand. Don't touch it directly, I warned. Walk through quickly, and whatever you do, don't stop halfway. Isabelle pulled Elara closer. What happens if we stop? You don't want to know. I offered my hand. We'll go together. After a moment's hesitation, Isabelle placed her hand in mine. Her touch sent an unexpected current through me. A recognition, a rightness I hadn't felt in centuries. Ready? I asked, my voice rougher than I intended. She nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. We stepped into the vortex together, the world dissolving around us in a rush of cold light and whispering voices. The transition took only seconds, but in that brief passage between worlds, I felt something shift between us, a connection forming that transcended the physical. We emerged into a vast hall of black marble, illuminated by floating orbs of blue-white light. Soaring columns supported a ceiling lost in shadows, and at the far end stood a throne of obsidian and silver. The Night Court, I announced, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. My home. Isabelle stared in wonder, her anger momentarily forgotten. It's real. It's all real. Of course it's real, I said softly. Just as Elara's dreams are real, just as the prophecy is real. Elara broke free from her mother's grip, running toward the throne with childish delight. I knew it, just like in my dreams. Elara, wait! Isabelle called, starting after her. I caught her arm gently. She's safe here, safer than she's ever been. Isabelle turned to me, her expression a complex mixture of fear, wonder, and something deeper, a recognition she was still fighting. What happens now? I released her arm, straightening to my full height. In this place, my power was undiminished, my royal nature undeniable. The janitor's uniform I still wore seemed absurd now, a costume too small for the truth of what I was. Now we prepare, I said. The hunters will regroup. My enemies within the court will learn of our arrival. We don't have much time. Time for what? I met her gaze directly, allowing her to see the full weight of centuries in my eyes. For you to accept what you already know, what your blood has always known. And what is that? She whispered. That Elara is too young to fulfill her destiny as queen. That the prophecy allows for an alternative. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Me? You think I'm supposed to be your queen? Not supposed to be, I corrected. Meant to be. Chosen to be. She shook her head in denial, but I could see the doubt in her eyes, the recognition she couldn't fully suppress. The Bloodgate admitted you, I reminded her. It recognizes what you refuse to acknowledge. This is insane, she whispered. I don't know you. I don't want this. What you want and what must be are often different things, I said gently. I didn't want exile. I didn't want centuries of solitude. But fate has its own designs. Across the hall, Elara had climbed onto the throne, her small form dwarfed by its massive proportions. She looked up at us, her face alight with joy and something older, a knowledge beyond her years. "Mommy," she called, "it fits you better than me. I saw it in my dream." Isabelle's face paled. "What did you see, baby?" "You wearing a crown of stars," Elara said simply, standing next to him. She pointed at me. "You looked happy." The silence that followed was profound. I could almost see Isabelle's resistance crumbling, the weight of destiny pressing down on her. "I can't," she whispered. "I have a life, responsibilities." I corrected gently. "The moment Cain discovered Elara's identity, your old life ended. There's no going back now. So I have no choice? Become your queen or what?" "There's always choice," I said. "But some choices protect those we love while others endanger them." She looked at me then, really looked at me, seeing beyond the janitor's uniform to the king beneath. "Who are you, really? Not just a vampire king. Who were you before?" "A man," I answered simply. "A ruler who thought he could bring peace between worlds. A fool who trusted too easily and paid the price. And now? Now I am what exile has made me. Cautious, patient, determined to reclaim what was taken and protect what remains." She glanced at Elara, who was now examining the intricate carvings on the throne's armrests. "And my daughter is part of that plan. She is the plan," I admitted. "The prophecy that sustained me through centuries of waiting. A child shouldn't bear that burden, which is why the burden must fall to you for now." I took a step closer to her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Until she comes of age, the court needs a queen. Someone strong enough to stand beside me against those who would harm her." "I'm a businesswoman, not a queen," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "You built an empire from nothing. You command respect and loyalty from everyone who serves you. You protect fiercely what you love." I smiled slightly. "Those are the qualities of a queen." She shook her head, but I could see her weakening, the inevitability of our situation settling over her like a mantle. "What would it mean?" she asked finally. "Being your queen, a blood bond, a sharing of power and purpose. You would remain human, but enhanced, stronger, longer lived. And Elara would be recognized as heir apparent under our joint protection until she comes of age." Isabelle closed her eyes briefly, her internal struggle visible in the tension of her shoulders. When she opened them again, there was resignation, but also determination. "If I agree to this, I have conditions." I inclined my head. "Name them." "Elara's education continues. Normal subjects, not just vampire things. She has as normal a childhood as possible under the circumstances." "Agreed. I maintain my identity in the human world. My company needs me." I hesitated. "That may be difficult. The hunters—" "Find a way," she interrupted. "I've worked too hard to abandon everything." I considered this. Limited appearances with heavy security, and you'll need to learn to defend yourself. She nodded. "And finally, this blood bond. It's not permanent. If I decide this isn't right, I can walk away." Now it was my turn to close my eyes. The bond she spoke of so casually was sacred in my world, a joining of souls as much as blood. To break it would be painful, at the very least. "The bond can be severed," I said carefully, "but not without consequence. For both of us." She studied my face. "You're not telling me everything." "No," I admitted. There are aspects of our world that cannot be explained, only experienced. From across the hall, Elara called out, "Mommy, there are rooms with my name on them, and toys, and books." Isabelle's expression softened at her daughter's excitement. "She seems happy here. This is where she belongs," I said quietly. "Where you both belong." She met my gaze, her decision made, though she wouldn't yet admit it. "Show me these rooms. I need to make sure they're suitable." I offered my arm in a gesture as old as courtesy itself. After a moment's hesitation, she placed her hand on it. "Your Majesty," I said, the title feeling right on my tongue. "Don't," she warned. "I haven't agreed to anything yet." But as we walked toward Elara, toward the inner chambers of the night court, a chill swept through the corridor, making the candles flicker. We both turned at once, my senses already detecting what hers could not yet perceive. The air had changed, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of silver and wolfsbane. "Get Elara," I whispered, my voice tight. "Take her to the inner chamber. Now." Isabelle's eyes widened, but she didn't question me. She rushed to her daughter, scooping her up despite the child's protests about the unexplored rooms. "What is it?" she asked over her shoulder, already moving where I'd directed. "Hunters." The word fell like lead between us. "They've found us sooner than I expected." I guided them through the winding passages of the night court, past ancient tapestries and silent sentinels carved from black marble. The hidden door to the inner sanctum yielded to my touch, revealing a chamber both opulent and secure. "Stay here," I instructed, pressing a heavy silver key into Isabelle's palm. "Lock it from the inside. Open for no one but me." Her fingers closed around the key, but she caught my arm before I could turn away. "How will I know it's you?" I almost smiled at her caution. "I'll say what I just called you." "Your Majesty," she whispered, understanding. I nodded once, then slipped back through the door, hearing the satisfying click of the lock engaging behind me. The corridors felt different now, no longer my domain, but a battlefield. I moved silently, gathering shadows around me like a cloak. The night court had defenses beyond mere walls and doors, ancient magics woven into its very stones. I activated them with whispered words, feeling the building respond to my command. The intruders had breached the eastern entrance, the one nearest the old plant. I caught glimpses of them through the security feeds. 6 men, heavily armed, led by a figure I recognized immediately. Marcus Kane. His presence was no surprise, but the timing was critical. The transition of power was incomplete. Isabelle had not yet formally accepted her role, had not consumed the blood that would seal our bond and grant her the full protection of my lineage. We were vulnerable. I reached the armory, a room untouched for decades, and selected weapons with practiced hands. The sword felt familiar against my palm, its weight a reminder of centuries I'd tried to forget. The daggers slid into sheaths at my wrists and ankles, hidden but accessible. Through the stone beneath my feet, I sensed their movements. They were splitting up, covering more ground, a tactical error. The night court was a labyrinth to the uninitiated. I tapped the communication panel, connecting to the security team stationed at the outer perimeter. "Converge on the main hall. Defensive positions only. These are hunters. They'll have blessed weapons." Acknowledgements crackled through the speaker. My guards were few but loyal, descendants of families who had served the night court for generations. They understood what we faced. I made my way to the grand staircase, positioning myself at its summit. From here, I could observe without being seen, could choose the moment to reveal myself. The first of Cain's men entered the hall below, weapons drawn, eyes darting nervously at the shadows. "Spread out," he hissed to his companions. "The janitor's here somewhere. Remember, silver to the heart or decapitation. Nothing else sticks." I almost laughed at being reduced to the janitor after all these years. But the humor died as Marcus himself strode in, his confidence radiating like heat. "Vance," he called, voice echoing through the hall. "We know you're here. We know what you're planning. It ends tonight." I stepped forward, allowing the light to catch me. "Marcus Cain, you're trespassing on sovereign territory." His laugh was sharp. "Sovereign? You abdicated that claim decades ago, Vance. You're nothing but a relic playing at relevance. And yet you brought quite the welcoming party." I descended 3 steps, keeping the high ground. "Tell me, what frightens you so much about an irrelevant relic?" His expression hardened. "You know exactly what you've done. Taking a human woman, corrupting her child, offering protection to the rightful heir of this territory," I corrected. "The Linton bloodline has always been part of this covenant." "Covenant?" He spat the word. "You've been manipulating that family for generations. Elias Sterling finally saw through you." That gave me pause. "Elias sent you?" He recognized the danger when his daughter started acting strangely, when security footage showed you entering restricted areas with her. Marcus raised his weapon, a modern gun, but I could smell the silver ammunition. "He wants his family back, Vance, and I'm here to deliver them." My guards had positioned themselves at the entrances, outnumbered but strategically placed. I signaled them to hold with a subtle gesture. "Elias Sterling has no claim here," I said, my voice dropping to a register that made the humans shiver involuntarily. "His bloodline is maternal, not paternal. He married into the legacy he now seeks to destroy." Marcus advanced, his men flanking him. "Enough talk. Where are they?" "Safe." I descended another step, and they will remain so. The first shot came without warning, not from Marcus, but from one of his men. I moved faster than human eyes could track, the bullet grazing my shoulder instead of finding my heart. The wound burned with Silver's touch, but I'd endured worse. The hall erupted into chaos. My guards engaged the hunters at the perimeter, while Marcus and I circled each other at the center. He had drawn a blade now, an ancient thing that hummed with old magic. "That doesn't belong to you," I noted, recognizing the weapon from my own armory, stolen decades ago. "Neither does Isabelle Linton," he countered, lunging forward. Our blades met with a sound like thunder, sparks flying where enchanted metal struck enchanted metal. I felt the years fall away, muscle memory taking over as we fought across the marble floor. He was good, better than I expected. The hunters had trained him well, and hatred gave him speed. But I had centuries of experience and the home advantage. The night court itself seemed to aid me, shadows deepening where I needed cover, floors becoming treacherously slick beneath his feet. "You can't win this, Cain," I said, parrying another thrust. "Even if you kill me, the covenant stands. The night court will recognize its queen." "She hasn't taken the blood," he snarled, revealing how much he knew. "Kill you now, and the line breaks." I faltered for just a moment, and his blade found my side, slicing through fabric and flesh. The pain was immediate and searing, silver poisoning my blood. I staggered back, using the staircase for support. Marcus smiled, sensing victory. Not so immortal after all. I heard the fighting around us diminish. my guards overwhelmed or retreating to more defensible positions. We were losing ground. Then, from above us, a voice rang out, clear and commanding. "That's enough." Isabelle stood at the top of the staircase, her figure silhouetted against the dim light. She had changed into a gown I'd never seen, something she must have found in the Queen's chambers, midnight blue, with silver threads that caught the light like stars. Marcus froze, his expression shifting from triumph to confusion. "Isabelle, we're here to rescue you. Your father sent us." She descended the stairs with deliberate steps, her gaze never leaving mine. "I don't need rescuing, Marcus." "He's controlling you," Marcus insisted. "Whatever he's told you is the truth," she finished, reaching my side. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining. More truth than my father ever shared. I felt her pulse against my palm, rapid but steady. She was afraid, but resolute. "This is bigger than you understand," she continued, addressing Marcus but speaking to everyone in the hall. "The plant, the town, my family's position, it was never just business. We've been guardians of something ancient, something that requires balance." Marcus shook his head. "He's filled your head with fairy tales." "No," she said firmly. "He's finally explained the nightmares I've had since childhood, the strange abilities I've always hidden, why my mother left, why my father drinks himself to sleep every night." Her grip on my hand tightened. "I've made my choice." Before I could stop her, before I fully comprehended her intent, she raised her free hand. In it gleamed one of my own daggers, taken from the inner sanctum. With a swift motion, she drew it across her palm, blood welling immediately. "Isabelle, no," I started, but she pressed her bleeding hand to my wound. "I accept what I am," she said, her eyes locked with mine. "I accept my place here. I accept the covenant." The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Power surged between us, ancient magic recognizing and binding what had always been meant to be joined. The night court itself seemed to exhale, tension releasing from stones that had stood sentinel for centuries. Marcus lunged forward with a cry of rage, but invisible barriers flared to life, throwing him back. The covenant was sealed. The court had its queen. Isabelle turned to face him, her eyes reflecting an inner light that hadn't been there before. "Leave now, Marcus Kane. Take your men and go. Tell my father his machinations are finished." "This isn't over," Marcus snarled, but even he could feel the shift in power. The very air crackled with it. "It is for tonight," I said, straightening despite my wound. The pain was already receding, Isabelle's blood working through my system like fire and ice. "The next time you enter these grounds without invitation will be the last mistake you ever make." He backed away, signaling his remaining men. They retreated, dragging their wounded, faces etched with a fear they couldn't name. As the great doors closed behind them, Isabelle's composure wavered. She swayed slightly, and I caught her elbow. "What did I just do?" she whispered. "What generations of your family were born to do," I answered, leading her to a nearby chair. "Though few have embraced it so dramatically." A small laugh escaped her, tinged with hysteria. "Is Elara safe?" "Yes. The inner sanctum is the most protected place in the court." She nodded, then looked at our joined hands, both smeared with blood. Hers and mine mingled. "I feel different, like there's electricity under my skin." "The change has begun," I explained gently. "It will take time to complete, to understand what you're becoming." "And what is that exactly?" Her eyes met mine, searching. "Something between worlds. Not vampire, not entirely human. The bloodlines merged centuries ago, creating something unique. That's why your family has always prospered, why the town thrived under your protection without knowing why. She absorbed this, fingers absently tracing patterns in our drying blood. And Elara? We'll have choices you never did. She'll grow up knowing her heritage, understanding her power. Isabelle fell silent, processing everything. Finally, she asked, "Will they come back? Marcus and my father?" "Say eventually," I admitted, "but not tonight. And when they do, we'll be ready." We sat in companionable silence as my guards returned, reporting that the perimeter was secure. The wounded were being tended to. The court was settling back into its rhythms. "I should get Elara," Isabelle said at last. "She'll be frightened." "She's probably found the library by now," I said, smiling slightly. "There are books there that move and speak. They've entertained royal children for generations." This earned a genuine smile from her. She does love stories. We walked together through the corridors, my wound nearly healed, her cut already scabbing over with unnatural speed. At the door to the inner sanctum, she paused. "Your Majesty," I said softly, "the promised password." She unlocked the door, revealing Elara curled up on a window seat, indeed with an animated book open before her, its illustrations dancing across the pages. "Mommy!" she exclaimed, running to Isabelle. "This place is magic. Can we stay, please?" Isabelle lifted her daughter, holding her close. "Yes, sweetheart, we're staying." Over Elara's head, her eyes met mine. "But there's much we need to discuss. Arrangements to be made." I nodded, understanding her concerns. "The transition can be gradual. You'll need to maintain your presence at the company, at least for now." "And you?" she asked. "Will you continue your janitorial duties?" I smiled at her gentle mockery. "Perhaps it's time for a promotion." Later, after Elara had been settled into her new rooms that had waited for a child's laughter for too long, Isabelle and I stood on the balcony overlooking the town. Lights twinkled below, citizens going about their lives, unaware of the ancient pact that had been renewed this night. "They'll never know, will they?" she asked, following my gaze. "Some suspect, some have always known. But most? No. They'll feel safer without understanding why. They'll prosper without questioning how." She leaned against the stone balustrade, moonlight silvering her hair. "And us? What happens now?" "Now," I said, carefully choosing my words, "we learn each other. The bond we've formed is unbreakable, but its nature is ours to define." "Partners, then," she suggested. "Co-rulers of this strange kingdom." "Partners," I agreed, the word feeling right. She turned to face me fully, her expression serious. "I won't be controlled, Caspian. Not by you, not by tradition, not by magic. I would expect nothing less from the Queen of the Night Court." A smile tugged at her lips. "That title will take some getting used to." "We have time," I reminded her. "More than you can imagine." Below us, the town clock struck midnight, its deep tones rolling up the hillside. Isabelle closed her eyes, listening. "I've always loved that sound," she murmured. "Even as a child, it never frightened me. It felt like a promise." I didn't tell her that the clock had been a gift from my court to her ancestors, enchanted to call to those of the bloodline. Instead, I simply stood beside her, feeling the night embrace us both, the first of many we would share. The clock's final toll faded, leaving behind a silence that felt expectant rather than empty. In that quiet moment, with the taste of blood still on my tongue and the warmth of her presence beside me, I recognized something I'd forgotten over my long years of exile. This connection, this purpose, this woman who challenged and completed me.